audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after After 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He's Pierre McGuire. Another great night of playoff hockey last night. Only 2 games tonight before we go back to a few more tomorrow night, but we'll get to those. Let's look back, Pierre, on last night. And we'll start off the game I was at TD Garden in Boston, Game 5 between the Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs. The Bruins once again for a second straight season playing a Game 5 on home ice with a chance to clinch the series and advance to the second round, and they can't do it. And whether they want to admit it or not, to those who were there last year, this game looked eerily similar to Game 5 against the Florida Panthers. Pierre, you and I were texting back and forth. They seemed hesitant. They seemed nervous, dare I say. It just what they weren't themselves. They were out of sorts from the get-go. A completely flat first period. They got progressively better, but they could really never get to the level they needed to, Pierre.
They were disjointed, Jimmy, right from the start. And good afternoon to you and to all our viewers and listeners. Thank you very much for tuning in. You know, Jimmy, the biggest thing watching it yesterday, they were so uncomfortable with the puck. Mm-hmm. And they spent way too much time defending. Yeah. And I think part of that is because their faceoff play was atrocious. Mm-hmm. You know, Max Domi won almost 86% of his faceoffs in that
10
game.
in a row at one point, right?
Yeah, John Tavares won almost 65% of his faceoffs. Yeah, I mean, you have no chance of winning when you got 2 center icemen that they take most of the draws for Toronto when they're dominating like that. That's a problem. And so it begs one question, Jimmy. You know me, I said it to you today. Don't overreact because there are peaks and valleys in every playoff series. There are for every team. Yes. Go back to what people in Toronto were saying after Game 4, and see what they're saying right now. Like it's apple and orange, like 3 days later. It's amazing. Yeah. But one thing I'd say, I don't understand if you win a game, why you change your lineup unless guys are hurt. Yeah. And I don't get Johnny Beecher coming out of the lineup. No. I don't get that. I don't get it at all. I get Shattenkirk, and I understand what they were doing. They were trying to get live legs on the ice, maybe quicker than Kevin's, and that would be Matt Grzelcyk. And then people will say, well, he got turned by John Tavares. He got beat to the net by Tavares. That being said, the back door's got to get covered. And one of our favorites, Charlie McAvoy, didn't do that. No. So there's a lot of stuff that went into that last overtime goal. But I would say the thing that kind of got my attention, Jimmy, when they take Beecher out, they better not get dominated in the faceoff circle. And they got dominated. They got dominated in the faceoff circle. So that exposes the coach's decision.
And the thing, you know, look, Pierre, I think Jim Montgomery's a great coach. You know how much I mean, I think you've made that very clear here. So, but we're paid to speak objectively. And I'm trying to be objective here and say that he needs to come out and have some kind of answer when he faces the media. Not because he owes the media or anything, because he owes his players something. He made those decisions. They backfired. I think he needs to come out and say, hey, I made a mistake. It is what it is. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move on. Today, he spoke again to the media, and he still didn't do that, and he still pinpointed things the players were doing. So I just think that right now, if he was to, take one for the team, I think it would help morale a little more.
Probably one of the first things he should have said last night, coming into the press media function, you know what? We weren't ready to go. Toronto was much better than us. Mm-hmm. That's on me. My responsibility as the head coach of this team is to make sure my guys are ready, because that was a potential closeout game, and we got to be ready because we know they're bringing their A game. Mm-hmm. And that's on me as the master motivator of this team. It's simple. You don't have to throw daggers and spend 500 hours on a soliloquy. Just quick to the point and say, we're going to be ready. When we play Game 6 in Toronto, we'll be a different team off the hop. And that's going to be on me to get them ready.
Okay, now look, here, by no means, and I don't want people to twist my words here, I'm not comparing this situation to what happened with John Cooper after the game the other day when he said something he obviously regrets. But he comes out today, before he even starts the press conference, I don't know if you saw it, He comes out, he immediately owns his mistake. He apologizes. He says that he reflected on things and he regrets it. And if it's one of those moments, he wishes he could just go back in time and pull it back. Pierre, I don't understand why it's so hard. And that's it. And then they moved on and there were no more questions about it. And I don't understand whether it's athletes, coaches, politicians, what have you, people in the spotlight seem to have such a hard time with just coming out and saying, I screwed up. Because once you do that, that's it. Then, if I'm the reporter and I start to come at you still after you do that, then I look like the jerk. I'm the one that's like trying to keep it going. Just come out and own it and move on. And I think that's all that Montgomery needs to do right now. And he'll still have a chance before the game tomorrow after the game day skate. But one thing, Pierre, besides the lineup changes, and I'm glad you touched on it and you and I discussed it, and I think we should elaborate here. Charlie McAvoy you talked about peaks and valleys. He's having a roller coaster of a series. He was not himself. If there was anyone that was really disjointed, to me, it was Charlie McAvoy. I don't know what's going on. I said this to you off the air, and I'll say it to our listeners right now. I believe that the pressure he got earlier in the year, and I'm not blaming the team for asking him to shoot more, to create more offense. You got to do that. That's part of coaching. That's suggestions you give players. However, I think, unfortunately, McAvoy took this pressure to be more offensive and is, as I told you, sort of forgetting the roots of his game. And that's a great stay-at-home, stand-up defenseman. And right now, he's holding that puck like it's a hot potato.
He was really bad in game 2, and we talked about it on the eye test. He failed every test in game 2, including the game-winning goal when Austin Matthews snuck in behind him. But boy, oh boy, was he really good in 3 and 4. He was really good in 3 and 4 in Toronto. And you come back, you play game 5, you got a chance to ice the series, and he went back to game 2 mode. So that's something that they'll have to address with him internally. He's too valuable a player. I'm not going to compare him to too many people that play in the league today. I don't think that's fair to him. But if I were to say a player that I find Charlie very similar to, and Charlie's bigger than and faster than, it's Chris Chelios.
Yeah.
Both right-hand shots, both guys that have to play huge minutes, both guys that have to be impact players for their team, both defensively and offensively and physically for their teams to win.
Snarl.
Yep. And, that's, if you were to ask me if I were working there, what I would try to do with Charlie, not so much now. You can't do that in the middle of a playoff series. But once the season's over, that would be the comparable, I think. And if you've got anything like Chris Chelios out of Charlie McAvoy long term, you got a Hall of Fame player in your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And, go ahead, Pierre.
That's what I'm talking about. So Charlie needs to be better. But I would say this too. I've never seen the Bruins, and you watch them all the time live. I watch them on TV most of the time. I've never seen the Bruins mishandle a puck so much, Jimmy.
Jeez.
And you know what? I made a point to a friend of our show, who I'm not going to bring his name up now. We were talking about it today. We both said, I wonder if the ice was heavier. The ice was sticky.
The ice was bad. The ice was bad.
So that could speak to part of, but it's the same for both teams.
I was just going to say.
But it really, I can tell you right now, it way affected Boston more than it affected Toronto, I thought. Yeah. Toronto was way better. Toronto was a way better team.
No, they were crisp. They were very crisp. And, one more thing on McAvoy, and then we'll move on from that. Just quickly, I'm with you, too. In the offseason, this is something I would do. Is go out and get a defenseman to play next to him like we suggested, and he ended up in Vegas, unfortunately for them, and Noah Hannafin. But a guy you can pair him with that's going to be dependable defensively, but bring more of that offense that you need next to McAvoy, and let McAvoy be himself, and then let that guy be the guy that maybe pinches a little more or creates a little more offense. I think that's something I'm targeting in the offseason if I'm Don Sweeney.
I'm sure he will. They're proactive. The Bruins have always been proactive.
Yeah, they got tons of cap space.
They got plenty of room. It's a very favorable city to live in and go to, have your children go to school. The practice facility is second to none. It's elite. The fan base is energized beyond belief. It's an amazing place to go. So I don't think they're going to have a problem doing that. And then I think your point's well taken. But for the Bruins now, if you consider everything that happened before last night and carry that over, you got a problem. Everything's gone now. You got to focus on game 6.
Yep.
Forget what happened in 3 and 4 when you won.
Yep.
Forget what happened in 5 where you played terrible. Forget what happened in 2 when you played terrible.
Exactly.
You got to focus on 6. And that's all. That's all you got. And that's why they got to get into this, cocoon, and they're all together and nobody else matters.
Well, Pierre, it's just another reflection too. We've had this discussion. I think we said at the beginning of playoffs and maybe a couple games in, and I think it was spurred on by one of our listeners and viewers. Is there home advantage anymore in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And for everything you just said about getting in that routine, it just seems the road team, because of the ability to do that, not having to deal with maybe their kids or their families and other obligations at home, it's all hockey. And Montgomery actually talked about that today in his press conference. And he said, yeah, it's like when you're on the road, all you're doing is talking hockey. You're not talking about bills or, we got to do this family event. You're not talking. It's just strictly hockey. It's the guys getting together and bantering about the game. And sometimes it's even just watching other games together, but it's all hockey. And so that clearly is helping the road teams a lot in this year's playoff.
Let me back your point up for 1 second. Toronto goes into Boston and wins last night. Colorado goes into Winnipeg and wins last night. Nashville, they go into Vancouver and win last night. It's to your point.
Yeah. Look at the Vegas-Dallas series, Pierre.
Well, yeah, that could change tonight.
That could change tonight, but still.
I'm just telling you this on that one, and we'll get back to what we were talking about before, but on that one, they're not, I don't want to say panicking in Vegas because I don't think that's the right term, and I don't think they'll panic. They're just not that kind of organization. But you raise your eyebrows a little bit when you see the goalie change.
Yeah.
You start to say, and one other thing, there are players that are missing practice, and I understand it because more times than not, teams allow players, it's an optional skate, especially day of the game.
Yeah.
When I was involved with Pittsburgh, most of our guys skated, even if it was only for 5 or 10 minutes. They'd come out and they'd skate, and then they go out because it's about rhythm. You're creatures of habit. But I gotta wonder if there's not more injuries in Vegas than what they're letting on.
Yep. Because they had a lot down the stretch period, didn't they?
They did. They had a lot. That's what I'm saying. And this hasn't been a nice guy. Like, I know a lot of people haven't watched the series yet because it's been on late. Tonight will be their chance of being in quote unquote prime time.
Yep.
So more people, but this has been a savage, barbaric, mean-spirited, and it carries over from last year too.
Exactly. Yeah.
There weren't a lot of nice guy hits in last year's. I think about Ben and Stone, like some of those hits were, just awful. I mean, great if you like hitting, but not if you're on the receiving end.
Yeah.
So that's I wonder about that one in that series in particular, changing the goalie.
But yeah, overall, it's just these road teams are cranking it out. They're getting all the wins. So we'll see if that continues. Pierre, the other games now, I confess to our listeners and viewers, and as I told you, I wasn't able to watch a lot. The one that I did kind of get to pay attention towards the end because I was driving back from Boston from the game, and then I caught the final few minutes on the TV when I got home was Nashville and Vancouver, Pierre. And as I said to you, now you'll be able to elaborate more because you watched most of the game. I was stunned at the inability of Vancouver to generate chances with the goalie pulled at the end of the game. That's a huge credit to Nashville as well, obviously. But we talked about the Bruins being disjointed. The Canucks, when they were trying to move the puck around, looked very disjointed. I counted 3 times in that final minute where they, erroneously passed the puck out of the zone and we're killing the clock off for Nashville. So just your take on that game and Nashville's resilience.
Well, extremely resilient, number one. Number two, Vancouver had a 1-0 lead and they tried to milk it. They couldn't expand on their lead because their power play just wasn't any good. They were 0 for 2 on the power play. That's not a ton of chances on the power play, but they didn't manufacture any chances on the power play either. Usually, if you're on the power play in the playoffs, you want to generate some momentum. They didn't generate any momentum at all. So I think that's a bit of a problem too for them. But you see there was an urgency from Nashville after giving up Game 4 the way they did. And that speaks to Andrew Burnett's message. Remember, we talked about it.
Yeah, where are all those people saying Andrew Burnett needs to be fired?
We talked about the other day.
Huh?
So Andrew Burnett and the way he polished his team up after that, most teams with a lesser coaching staff maybe would have crumbled and the series would be over. But those guys hung tight. Yossi's the real deal. Obviously, congratulations to Roman and to Quinn Hughes. You got two guys that are Norris Trophy nominees playing in that series, plus Cale McGuire, whose team has moved on. So the three finalists for the Norris Trophy, two of the three are playing in that series, and both of them are playing extremely well. I know people are going to say Hughes is getting beat up. He's getting mauled. But that's what happens in the playoffs. He's their go-to guy in the back end. That's what happens in the playoffs. And people say, well, how come this doesn't happen in the regular season? Because you play the same team every other night for 7 days in the play, or for 14 days in the playoffs. And so it becomes a battle of attrition. And you have to identify key components. And that's why the eye test matters.
Exactly.
It matters a ton.
And you know what your eye test caught watching that game and then doing a little due diligence, Pierre, and I want to tell the listeners about the great stat you found. Elias Pettersson right now is in a slump, okay? He has one goal, counting the regular season. He has one goal in his last 8 games. That came on April 10th against the Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah whatever. However, it gets worse, Pierre. For 9 games before that, he had no goals. So between March 19th and now, he has 1 goal. He is struggling, and that's scary right now. So remember Pierre, and it was great by talking when he did this. Do you remember after it was a game 1 and people were asking about Pettersson, or game 2, that, you know, his struggles in the playoffs, and he said, hey, he's young, man. He's still learning. He's getting used to playoff hockey. But now you got to wonder, when you see that stat, maybe it's not just the playoff hockey. It's something bigger going on. Who knows? We don't know. Is he hurt? Who knows? But something is off with him, and they need to figure that out because he's a key component.
Oh, for sure he is. The one guy that has nothing to be ashamed of there right now, obviously Brock Besser's had a tremendous playoff. JT Miller's played really well. He's been outstanding.
Isn't it crazy what he's done since pretty much the whole world had him traded? Remember when he was like constantly in the trade rumors and then they end up signing an extension, and he's like their all-around guy. He really is.
No, he's been good. He's been really good. And I'm on record saying, you know, I didn't think Nashville would be able to score enough in this series. And if you look at it, all the games have been obviously really tight. And if Forsberg and Nyquist and O'Reilly aren't involved in the goals, they're not winning. And you know what? If you look at every game they've won, those guys, and they've won 2 so far, those guys are involved in every goal. Virtually. So, you know, they still haven't found a way to shut those guys down. It's a big part. I know that Carrier and Yossi scored both goals, 2 defensemen last night. In the 2-1 win. But look at who the assists were from.
Forsberg and Nyquist right there. So good point by you, Pierre. The other 2 games, I just didn't know anything on, so I'll let you take those. I mean, to me, not so surprising. We said it. The Islanders would hang in every game, which they did. I know the score says otherwise, but you know that was just kind of the way the series went. Carolina Hurricanes are just a better team, plain and simple.
If you're an Islander fan, player, or coach, you're proud of your team. You got into the playoffs. You made a little bit of a push. You extended the series to 5 games. I mean, you did some good things in the series. You gave them a lot to think about long-term going forward for Carolina. It'll be a different series for them when they play the Rangers. I'll tell you that. It's going to be a lot different.
I can't wait.
You know, the Islander roster is not a great roster. It's a hard-working roster. It's an industrious roster, but it's not a great roster. It's not an elite playoff roster. And they just never got the goaltending they were expecting, because that goaltending for most of the season covered up a lot of the blemishes of the roster. It really did. The big question long-term, and I would love to be a fly on the wall for the exit meeting for the Islanders, what's going to be said to Matt Barzal by either Patrick Roy or Lou Lamoriello? They need him to be far more consistent.
Yes.
They need him to be an elite level offensive player that every night you can count on. He's a really important player for them.
He is. He is. And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what they're going to be targeting on the free agent market and in the trade market, Pierre, and that would be offense.
They need offense. There's no question.
Yeah.
And then the other game, Jimmy, I mean, give Carolina credit, and, their role players are good. They've overcome the injury on defense to Pesci. Tony DeAngelo's gone in there and done very, very well. Good for him. Jordan Martinook had a huge series. Sebastian Aho was really starting to warm up as the series went along. He got better. Svechnikov's been a beast ever since they put him on the line with Aho and Gensel. So there's good stuff there. The series with the Rangers will be very interesting. And it could go long. It could be a really long series. And then the other game that went on last night was in Winnipeg and Colorado. I'm going to say it now. You were talking about it before very eloquently about apologizing. I apologize. I got it totally wrong.
Yep, I did too.
I'm telling you right now.
Yep.
I was expecting Winnipeg to win the series, and the only reason I thought they would win the series is because they would get better goaltending from Connor Hellebuck than the Colorado Avalanche would get from Georgiev. I was right one night, and I was wrong 4 other nights.
Well, it's interesting, Pierre, speaking of Connor Hellebuck, and obviously, I mean, he's a Vezina Trophy candidate. He's a favorite to get it. And, I think that when people are thinking about USA Hockey and what happens in the upcoming Four Nations tournament or face-off, whatever they're calling it, and the Olympics after that in 2026, you would think he would be the favorite to be the number one guy. But, Pierre, I put a poll out last night when I got home, and I said, if you're USA Hockey GM Bill Guerin, is Jets goalie and likely 2024 Vezina Trophy winner Connor Hellebuck your number one goalie right now? It is completely split. It's at 50.5 yes and 49.5 no. I'm guessing that was not that close heading into this series, and I'm just as guilty of it. So I'm with you too. I mean, I thought this was going to be the series that he broke through. He looked so good against them in the regular season. It was only a week before the playoffs that they had shut the Avs out 7-0, but it just shows you the difference between playoff hockey and regular season hockey.
You know who's an American-born player that plays goal? I know people aren't connected to Alaska. Mm-hmm. But Alaska is one of the states in the United States. There's a guy in Boston named Jeremy Swayman. And if you were to probably add his name to that poll, I think the poll would be probably closer.
So a lot of people were coming with replies, Pierre, and they were, just saying what their top 3 would be. There were a lot of Swaymans in there. And it was either coming out or
two more names.
Okay, so I'll tell you the choices that people were saying. There are a lot of Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Demko. Or what was going on was some people were taking out Hellebuck. Yep. Hellebuck for Swayman, or they were taking out Ottinger and putting Swayman in for him. So there's a lot of Swayman starting to come into the equation there, and I think people are starting to catch on and realize how good this kid is.
So I'm really happy that the fans did that, because Ottinger is one of the 2 names I was going to tell you, and then Demko, and then I was going to go one level deeper. I think the 2 best goalies in college hockey, one plays at Michigan State, Trey Augustine, and one plays at Boston College, Jacob Fowler.
Good call.
Listen, I've seen young guys go in. I've seen old guys go in. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying those kids might be ready by the time you've got 26. You don't know.
You don't know. Exactly. That's a great point by you, Pierre, to look deeper.
People said in 1971, as a kid in Montreal delivering the Montreal Star, it was an afternoon paper. I'm telling you right now. I delivered the newspaper in the afternoon. It was no fun in the winter. Trust me when I tell you. And I remember, and there was no comments to the sports ed or any of that stuff. Just the columnists, they were on a mission. They were mad because they didn't think the team was achieving to the level they should have.
Yeah.
And they brought up a guy from Halifax. His name was Ken Dryden at Cornell University.
And everyone was like, who?
Who? And he wore these big Coke bottle glasses, and everybody's like, oh, my God, he can't even see. And then he goes in, and he steals the Bruins series. The Bruins were the best team in the league by a mile that year. And the Canes go on this unbelievable run. And before he's even Rookie of the Year, he wins the Conn Smythe.
Yeah.
So don't tell me it can't happen.
Yep.
It can happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great call by you, Pierre, to include them in the equation, Fowler and Augustine, because they could very well be starters in the NHL by the time.
Like Augustine could definitely be, and I don't know why Fowler couldn't be.
Yep.
I mean, you've seen him enough now. We've talked about him enough.
And Pierre, look, he's not on this radar for the roster we're talking about. But I forgot when we were talking about the Bruins and Leafs. Big credit to Joseph Woll for the game he had. And Pierre, did you see his post-game comments?
I did not, because I'm watching it. I apologize. Okay. All these post games, I don't watch them. I'm watching all the. I don't watch them between periods. I just watch the games, and I apologize.
You know what? One of the things was that he cited is why he was so comfortable,
because he played so many games.
There you go. That was one of the first things yesterday. Yep, and that was one of the first things he said on the air.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was, and I immediately thought of you. So,
well, I'm happy for him. Look, he was good. The one thing I'll say in overtime, I think it might have been DeBrusque, but if I got it wrong, I apologize. Somebody had an unbelievable chance in the slot.
It was DeBrusque.
It was, and he made an amazing left leg save. Talking about Joseph Woll, and I thought about it afterwards, Jimmy, as I was watching Colorado and Winnipeg. If Charlie Coyle's shot in the third period coming down the left-hand side goes in off the post because it hit the inside part of the post and came out.
Oh, yeah.
What are we saying today?
We're not having this conversation.
No, I was thinking about it last night, though, after, the game was decided and Woll makes that big save, and then obviously Matthew Nyes from Scottsdale, Arizona, Jimmy. Scottsdale, Arizona, that hockey hotbed, Scottsdale, Arizona. I was thinking, what happens if Charlie scores there?
Yeah.
Everybody's saying the Bruins are the best team. They're this. And you know what I would have said today with you? They're so lucky. They played poopy. They didn't play good.
Well, they were lucky to be tied 1-1. I don't know how that game got to overtime. I mean, that game could have been out of hand if not for Swayman.
Toronto played their best game in the series. They were good. They were good in game 2, but they were better in game 5. They were.
By the way, too, I thought you'd get a kick of this. Jeff Marek earlier today, great point by him. He said, if I had told you heading into that game we didn't know if Matthews was going to play. So if I had said a guy from Arizona is going to score the winning goal, would you have thought it was Matthew Nyes?
You know what's funny? I remember last year when Matthew left, obviously, University of Minnesota to turn pro.
Yeah.
After they had been beaten in overtime by Quinnipiac. And all the beat writers in Toronto, all of them, kept saying, well, he's going to be a good add to the Marlies, and he's going to be – they hadn't seen him play, clearly.
People just don't watch.
But I was reading this stuff, and you can go look it up online. Like, I'm sure it's all still there. And it's like, oh, he'll need to be schooled down with the Marlies, and he'll have to do this and have to – and I'm like, no, he's not.
Yep.
He'll be playing right in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what did I tell you, Pierre? What I like – he's a playoff type
great
guy.
Series, Jimmy. He's had a really good series.
He really has. Good scouting by the Toronto Maple Leafs to get him. All right, Pierre, let's look ahead before we go over to questions. Let's look ahead to tonight. Only 2 games, as I said. They're going to kick it off. We've got – I can't believe it's May 1st, by the way. The Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars, Game 5 in Dallas. And as you said, you got a feeling this will be the game the home team finally wins. I'm with you on that. And I am definitely with you on – the goalie change. I like Bruce Cassidy, got to cover him. He was a joy to cover. He's a great coach, obviously, took them to a cup. I don't agree with this decision. I don't think the goalie's been the issue for the Golden Knights in this series, Pierre.
No, I don't think so either. Logan's been good for them, but I would say this, Bruce, sometimes you want to get your team's attention too. You're going on the road. You just lost 2 games at home. So rather than yelling and screaming, you do something to get the team's attention, and maybe this is going to get the team's attention. They won the cup with Aiden Hill last year, and Aiden Hill had a real good record against Dallas last year, especially in the playoffs, obviously. So I think they're probably going back internally as a coaching staff looking at that. But I don't know if, Jimmy, you made the good point. I thought there might be some injuries there, but you were right. You're spot on. The truth is that they were an injured team down the stretch. Mm-hmm. And so I think some of that's carried over.
It's nagging.
And for people that haven't watched this series, It's a mean series.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's on in prime time tonight, so it's a good chance for people to really catch
up to the series. It's a very mean series.
So we're both liking Dallas in that. Game 5, another potential clincher. The Edmonton Oilers hosting the Los Angeles Kings. Pierre, I don't know. Like, this seems like we might have a clincher tonight, just the way it's going right now for the Kings. But once again, you never know. If the fourth game is the hardest, so you can never count out that team facing elimination.
Yeah, the Kings played terrible in game 4, and they won 1-0. It was a power play goal by Evan Bouchard, but they played terrible in that game.
Yeah.
Hats off. Stuart Skinner played probably the best game I've ever seen him play in that game. He kept it close. Now, sometimes you need that in the playoffs, and they clearly got that in Edmonton. I do think the crowd will help them tonight. I don't think we'll see a repeat of game 2 where LA had a huge game from Kopitar and Drew Doughty, and they won that thing to even the series. I don't think we'll see a repeat of that in game 5 tonight. It's a really hard game for LA to win, Jimmy. I believe really, really hard game.
It really is. And you bring up that 1-0 game too, Pierre. In the beginning of the year, did we ever think the Edmonton Oilers would be winning a playoff game 1-0? Just doesn't seem to match. You know, when you think Edmonton, you think offense, but credit to that coaching staff for the way they changed the mindset when they came in and took over, because there were a lot of low scoring games when they went on that tear right after Knoblauch got hired, if you remember. And he changed the mindset. He made them think about the 200-foot game, and it's showing in the playoffs.
I would say that Knoblauch's been really good there, and Coffey's been very good.
Yep.
I look at players getting better as how coaches do things. And every one of those defensemen, including Darnell Nurse, by the way, who's their highest paid defenseman, they've all gotten better under Paul Coffey. Every single one of them has improved since Paul got there. Yep. Cody Cece's not the same player. Evan Bouchard's not the same player. Matthias Ekholm's not the same player. Darnell Nurse is not the same player. Vincent Desharnais is not the same player. Like, I don't need a roster to know their defense. I'm just telling you. Yeah. That's why I know it, because I'm watching them get better. I'm going, boy, I'm proud of Paul.
He's done a great job.
Paul's done a really good job there.
Yeah.
And, I get it's Knoblauch's team because he's the head coach. But I look at guys making players better.
Well, he referenced him in a press conference I heard this morning. I mean, he was crediting Coffey for sure. So
who was
Knoblauch? Yeah.
Yeah. Because he sees the same thing I'm seeing, because he's got to watch the tape every day.
Yep.
And you can see where guys are slipping, and you can see where guys are getting better.
Yeah.
And none of their guys are really slipping.
No, they're not.
They're not. They're going up. They're going up.
You can even see Pierre, and I'm just going to go up to the forward position too. I mean, guys like McDavid and Draisaitl coming back checking, doing little things. Not that they didn't do that before, but they didn't do it as often, in my opinion. And
you're right. You know what's a catalyst for that? They see Zach Hyman day in and day out. They see the work habits of Zach Hyman day in and day out. Now, I get Zach Hyman's this offensive guy now. He hadn't quit the game defensively.
No.
He hasn't quit the game physically.
Nope, he pays the price.
Quit the game forechecking.
Yeah.
So all the dirty little things you got to do to win, he still does them. And I think those guys see that and they're like, you know what? I appreciate what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely rubbed off on them. Pierre, couple news items before we get to the questions around the NHL. One thing interesting out of Carolina, I don't know how much I read into it. I think it might be just banter and, just a good side story. Rod Brindamore sounding a bit hesitant about his future with the Carolina Hurricanes, saying it's in the owner's hands, in Tom Dunn's hands, and he's done everything they've asked. He's agreed to everything they've asked. So he's kind of just throwing the ball in their court, Pierre. And, of course, that's spicing up loads of rumors of Brindamore to Seattle because of Ron Francis and the connection there, which I don't know about. But, just your thoughts as they go into a huge series with the New York Rangers. Can this become a distraction?
Yeah, and that's why I'm a little bit surprised that it's taken on this life. Usually you have one standard answer. We're not talking about contracts during the playoffs.
Yep.
For players, we're not negotiating. For coaches, we're not talking.
Yep.
We'll let you know when the season's over.
Everyone's talking.
Everybody's talking. I do believe they'll find a way to make him happy in Carolina, talking about Rod. it's almost like what we've been talking about with Steven Stamkos and John Cooper. I've heard this. I haven't read it. I was informed, and if I'm wrong, Jimmy, just tell me, but I was informed that John Cooper is either signed an extension or is close to signing an extension in Tampa.
He's close.
Okay. And then I heard that Julien Brisebois today had a press conference, and he said, we have a plan to keep Steven Stamkos. I might be paraphrasing, but close enough. Is that right? Is that fair?
Yep.
So that doesn't stray from anything we believed, but they waited till after the playoffs were over for that.
Exactly.
You don't talk about this stuff in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know when all started.
Especially the coach getting right back to the writer, Luke DeCock, out of the Carolina News and Observer, longtime Hurricanes beat writer. I think since they've been there, he's been covering the team. And he texted him right back, and he said, it's in their hands. Like, the fact I just would have thought he'd get a no comment.
I don't know. Luke's a very reputable reporter.
Yeah.
He's done very good work there for a long time. And I know the players and the management there respect him. So I don't know what to tell you except to say that I would be surprised if he moved on, but one never knows.
And you just don't want that. Like I'm saying, regardless of what the outcome is, you don't want this right now. Just kill it. Keep your mouth shut. Move on. But what's the
one thing we talk about all the time? Don't be first.
Yeah.
Be right.
Yep.
Be first. Be right.
Yeah. So we will see what happens there in Carolina. And then you mentioned Pierre, the Norris Trophy finalist, and you got to think it's going to Quinn Hughes, I would think.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it's set up to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this: Yossi had an unbelievable year.
He did. And I think this goes to the whole thing. We need two different awards, like they're saying over here in the comments section. We need to make that happen.
Yeah,
we really do.
We need the Bobby Orr for the best offensive defenseman. Yep. And we need, if you want to call it the Norris or whatever you choose, the Butch Bouchard for the best defensive defenseman. I don't care. Or you call it the Harvey Orr Award, Doug Harvey and Bobby Orr for the best offensive. I don't know what you call it, but you do something. Make it the best offensive defenseman. And just move along. Yeah. But Yossi's had an amazing year. I don't think they don't make the playoffs if Yossi's not playing in Nashville. Quinn's been great, and Kale's he's elite. He's super elite.
Pierre, I tweeted that amazing end-to-end rush the other day, and I said the next Bobby Orr ? And I thought I was going to get slaughtered and trashed, and a lot of people said, "Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah,
I can see it. I know, but I would
just like to know the age group of the people that were saying. I was at a dinner.
I can't tell.
So I was at a dinner last week, and somebody came up to me and was talking about Bobby Orr. And I said, "Did you enjoy watching him play?" And you know what the person said to me? It's a hockey person. He goes, "I never had the chance to see him live." He goes, "I wasn't born."
Wow.
I think there's more than you think that are Bobby Orr fans that didn't see him play.
Yeah.
Now, I had the privilege of seeing him play a lot.
I never saw him live. He retired in 76, so I wasn't even 2 when he retired, Pierre. So I didn't get to see him. But the first thing I learned being a kid from Boston when it came to hockey, I think I maybe even learned about Bobby Orr before I learned about the Bruins. We're
getting to the point now where, like, I work with a lot of young players, like some younger than others, and they ask me, like, "Mr. McGuire, how good was Mario Lemieux? Because my dad tells me he's really good."
Yeah.
And I said, "You never saw him?" He goes, "No, I was born in 2002, or I was born in 2008, or I was born in 2010. So I never had a chance to see him play." No, that's true. You didn't. That's when you know. Oh boy.
Wow. It's amazing, Pierre. You're a lucky person, though, to have seen that close up as much as you did.
Yeah. I'm grateful every day, Jimmy. Great, and not more grateful than working here on the eye test with you. So grateful.
Thank you very much. Same here. All right, let's talk about our sponsors here. CBET. I wonder what the props would have been like in Mario's day on him to score goals or a point. Probably not the best value because you knew he was going to do it pretty much on a nightly basis. But I want you to go over right now. Check out CBET. Your first bet there will be refunded up to 300 Canadian. Of course, so that gives you a little free play there. Win or lose, that is. So you get that refund, win or lose. You want to use the code SICK. That's SICK, like our song. So go over there right now. Use the code SICK at CBET. And, of course, our other sponsors, TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance, and drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com, and check them out and tell them we sent you. All right, let's get to the questions. What do we got here on a Wednesday afternoon? Bill Van Vagel starts it off. Does the NHLPA get upset at Stamkos, a la Ray Bork, if Stamkos takes a significant hometown discount contract? It's a good question.
It's a good question.
In my opinion, I do think I don't think they like it in general, but I think they understand it's a cap world, and it's, that's a result of the cap, and it's going to happen.
I don't think they'd be upset in this case. I think they're worried more about players that are in the pure part of their prime that really affect long-term deals. So I would say I don't think in this case there's going to be a group that would be upset with him. I'd be very surprised.
Okay. Next question. Jeffrey B., where does Winnipeg go from here? They had everything on paper to be successful in the postseason and now will likely lose to Foley and Monahan in free agency, and they also need to give an extension to Perfetti. They've got an interesting offseason ahead of them. I know last year was quite interesting, obviously, with all the drama they had around them, but they've got another big one here, Pierre. There's definitely some changes coming, I think, in the peg.
Well, they got to wonder about what's going to happen with the coaching staff. I think that would be one thing they'll evaluate. Secondly, I think they're going to have to evaluate their depth on defense. Internally, I know it's sexy to talk about the forwards, but the depth on defense is something they're going to have to address, I think. Rutger McGuire, he's not coming out of school. He's going back to play another year of college hockey. So that's an interesting thing for them. And he's a legit A prospect. I mean, he's a good player. He's a really good player. So they've got some issues there. There's no question. I was surprised. That they gave up so many chances, and I'm surprised at Hellebuck. I still am. I got it completely wrong. I did. I'm just surprised by it. I am. Not that I got it wrong. I'm surprised at how he played.
But Pierre, you did nail it on that third pairing. They did not have a good series.
No, they had a tough time.
Yep. So, all right, next question. Pierre and Jimmy, can the Canucks do it without Demko? I think so.
I think they can do this series without Demko.
Yeah, long haul, maybe not.
Long haul, I don't think so, but I think this series they can.
Yeah, and I don't think DeSmith or the other guy. Seeloffs. Yeah, Seeloffs or DeSmith have been the issue, Pierre. They've done their job. So
absolutely, got to get some points. Hey, those forwards are high-end forwards. They got to score more than one goal.
Yep.
They got to score more than one.
Bottom line. All right, next question. Claire Cappelletti. I wonder if there's any relation to Gino Cappelletti. Remember him, Pierre? Patriots?
I think it's a different spelling.
I think so. Good receiver or tight end, I believe. He also did the radio for a long time for the Patriots.
Gino.
You still think KK is in trouble? You mentioned that when he was scratched last month. Pierre?
Yeah, I mean, Jack Drury's passed him in the lineup. They're playing. They moved Drury from left wing to center. They got him taking big faceoffs. So in terms of trouble, his contract's not going anywhere.
Right.
But in terms of overall depth, and they just signed a whack of players, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They signed, Bradley Nadeau. They signed Jackson Blake. They signed a couple Russian draft picks that they own. So long term, could he be in trouble? Yeah, he could. He could be in trouble. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Claire says no relation that she knows of to Gino. We didn't think so. We just
different spelling, Claire, but thank you so much. It's a good question.
And I think that's an Italian name. If it is, God bless the Italians. I'm got some Italian in me too, Pierre. All right, let's go. Next question. NAS26. Hey, have either of you known of a goalie that has a great regular season and a playoff disappointment more than Hellebuck? Because he was worse than bad. I'm trying to think. That's a good question.
It's a good question. I don't look at it from the negative side. I just was surprised that Connor, and I said it before the playoffs. I said, this is the first time I think going in that he's going to be the favorite. And he didn't get it done. He just didn't. So I'd have to think about that long term. I've watched a lot of different games and a lot of different guys, that have performed.
I was going to say Pierre. Now, I know it's hard to say because he did make it to the final one year when you guys beat him. But after that, he had a lot of good regular seasons, but could never get it going in the playoffs, and that's John Casey.
Yeah, Johnny was, a little
say,
he was a talented player, though. Donnie, see, I would say this is a hard question because I like these guys. I had the privilege of working with Donnie Beaupre. Donnie was a guy that had really good numbers. He had really good numbers, but he never kind of translated into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question.
It is. And
it's not because I'm trying to skirt it. It's just a hard question.
For sure. All right, next question. David Robinson. Should the Bruins come out of the gates throwing hits at everyone anywhere near the puck to possibly surprise and back off the Leafs to start Game 6? Yes, I think you need to set the tempo. I wouldn't forget about the puck, but, if you got that hit lined up, you take it.
I would say that's part of it, but I'd say puck possession is going to matter a lot.
Oh, yeah. Jimmy said that today.
Force them to play defense rather than offense and start winning faceoffs.
Yeah.
To me, one of the biggest adjustments going into that
got to be back in. You got to put Beecher back in.
Just start winning faceoffs. Don't let Domi won almost 87% of his faceoffs. He's 86 point something. Come on.
Yeah. Here's one thing, Pierre, and it's I was thinking about this, but it's because he's got so many intangibles. You want him on the bench just for that. But Pat Maroon's, and I like him. I think he's amazing. 3-time Stanley Cup champion. I'm just saying, reality's reality, and he looks slow out there right now. He's having a hard time. I wonder, do you pull him out and put Beecher back in, leave the young kid Brazu in, just to get a little more speed and obviously the face-offs? I don't know. But is it too much of a risk given the intangibles?
I think it's tough to take Maroon out.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Especially because if you go back to games 3 and 4, he was part of it.
Yeah. And Pierre, Jimmy Montgomery, and also Bruce Cassidy going back to 2019, Game 7 Stanley Cup, he scratches David Backes. Game 7 last year against Florida, Jimmy scratches Nick Foligno. Those guys matter in these types of games. They do. I know they may not, Father Time may have caught up a bit, but that's why, I know it's too hard to do because you need that. You need that environment that he creates on the bench.
So the one thing I'd say, Jimmy, the Bruins have earned the right to have a safety net for Game 6 tomorrow. The safety net is if they lose, they still have 7. Toronto hasn't earned that right. They have no safety net. So if they don't win, they're out.
Yep.
So it comes down to how tactically aware can Boston be and match the intensity of the urgent team from Toronto. And if they do, they'll have an opportunity just like they did in games 3 and 4. But if they don't, they play like they played in Game 2 or they played like they did in Game 5, you're going to have a Game 7. And then there's no safety net for either team.
Yeah, that was like Trent Frederick last night said, we got to teach ourselves to think we're down 3-1 and not the other team.
Yeah, the safety net's an interesting thing because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes you lean on it a little too much. Yeah. All right, next question. The Puck Bunnies. Did either of you see something in Monahan's game that wasn't working in the playoffs?
Yeah, I did. No tempo.
Yep.
No tempo. That was a fast series. That probably was the worst matchup Winnipeg could have got.
Yeah.
That was a bad matchup. It would have been better for them to have to play against, if they were playing against Vegas or even playing against Dallas.
Yeah.
That's a bad matchup for them just because they get overrun with speed and they're basically playing with 4D.
And that speed also includes size coming at you at that rate of speed.
Well, we talked about that yesterday. Okay, so now I'm hearing Nathan McKinnon saying one of the best guys in our team in the first round was this guy that nobody wanted in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know, Pierre. It's
at the trade deadline. All I know is I'll get you to get the tape, and I don't want to be rude about it. You asked me who did the best at the trade deadline, and I told you the less sexy but the most important was Colorado.
Yeah, because of Trennan. Yep.
Pretty
Middlestat
good.
Was a great pickup too.
Pretty good second center, Casey Middlestat.
Wow.
So the only concern I had on it, and I said it to you too.
And he's proven us wrong. Yeah. He deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
To be able to mentally, that's huge. What he's done here.
Mentally strong and tough. Way to go.
Good for him.
I know I got it wrong, and I apologize. I got it wrong.
Good for him. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Hey, Randy. Jimmy and Pierre, if you were the Islanders, would you talk to the Leafs about Mitch Marner?
I would, but here's the deal. I don't think Toronto's making any trade with the Islanders because there's one thing. If Lou Lamoriello's back as a GM, and I believe he will be, he knows both sides of the trades. If you're a smart general manager, you don't make a deal with a team that knows both sides of the trade.
Yeah.
Intimately.
Yeah.
And Lou would know both sides of the trade intimately.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Oh, by the way, little rumor floating around, Pierre. If Mark Hunter does leave London, does Lou try to bring him in, considering they work together in Toronto?
Or does Columbus?
Well, I think Columbus.
Try to bring him in because Rick Nash played for he and his brother in London. And, there was a guy that I know Mark helped draft in Toronto. His name's Mitchell Marner.
Yes. Yep. I really think he ends up in Columbus, but we'll see. All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel. Stuart Skinner gives me serious Cam Ward vibes. A young goalie taking a team far into the playoffs. Am I crazy? Whew. Let's see a few more. Let's get to the conference final before we say that. But I see a little similarity in their games for sure.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to go there yet.
Yeah.
I would say Cam was amazing in 06.
Oh, wow.
He was unbelievable. He didn't even start the playoffs in Montreal.
Yeah. Martin Gerber.
Martin Gerber.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And then he came in and won the Conn Smythe Trophy. He did the Ken Dryden of 1971.
That's right.
That was amazing.
All right, next question. Alex Evanowski. So I don't mind the idea of the Norris and the Orr trophy, but why not just take the top 3 point getters and mandate the voters to pick the player who plays the best defense out of the 3?
You could, but what happens if Rod Langway was involved in the league? He was the best defenseman in terms of playing defense. He got no points.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aaron Ekblad's a really good player. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit around the league.
Yeah.
He's a top-end matchup guy. I'll use Adam Pelech. And I know people are going to say, well, Pelech wasn't very good this year. He played with a lot of injuries. Adam Pelech's a really good shutdown defenseman.
Yep.
Zdeno Chara, was a heck of a shutdown guy. He wouldn't have been in those top 3 for points. No chance.
No
chance.
It's amazing what he did getting to Norris in 2009.
That's what I'm saying. So I like your thought. Usually, I like a lot of what Alex is saying. I'm not buying that part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that.
All right. Next question. Bill Van Vagel. I'm always curious. Why did Phil Kessel not get signed? Salary demand, skill decline, his personality. Would you think his experience winning would be in demand?
Conditioning levels weren't particularly good. He had an opportunity. The team that knew him the best, Vancouver.
Yep.
That was the team that knew him the best.
Yep.
Rick Tocchet coached him in Pittsburgh. Mike Yeo knew him from Pittsburgh. They knew him the best.
Yeah.
They knew him the best. Sergei Gonchar, Jimmy Rutherford, they knew him the best. And they gave him an opportunity. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I hope somehow he can stay around, but if not, he's had an amazing career.
Oh my gosh, Phil's had and you know what? Add one other thing: cancer survivor. Nobody talks about that enough. He had testicular cancer and he was 19 years old.
Yep.
You know, it's just like Shea Theodore. I still am shocked. Nobody talks about Shea Theodore. He's a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
You would never know it by the way he played. It's unbelievable what he and Phil Kessel have done.
Yep, I agree. All right, next question. Mark enters. Marc-Andre Fleury is a surefire Hall of Famer, but other than that first cup, he's had his struggles in the playoffs, and he's right up there in wins. Connor H still has time to write his story.
So I would say this, with all due respect to Mark, 16 and 17 cup for Pittsburgh, Marc-Andre Fleury was part of those.
Yep.
And he was, people forget, Matt Murray's goalie record, but he got hurt. So I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll see. We'll see how Hellebuck does. We'll see. Like, I want to give the guy an opportunity. He's had a ton of opportunities, Jimmy.
Yep.
His goals against were almost 6 in this playoff.
Yeah.
Colorado scored, they had 5 or more goals in every game. 5 or more in every game.
Whew. All
5
right.
or more.
I know.
Jimmy, 5 or more goals in 5 straight games.
I know, it's astonishing. It's baffling. I don't understand.
Don't forget, Hellebuck got pulled in game 4 after the second period.
Yeah,
they put Laurent Brossoit in.
Well, there will be a lot of reflection, I'm sure, over the summer to figure this out for him. All right, next question. A to Z me. We keep talking about the Leafs core, but never mention the anemic Jets core. Year after year with the same results. Got to think there'll be lots of movement there. What do you guys think will happen? I agree. I think there's a lot.
We were just talking about that. And one thing I would say about it is, Jacob Trouba is playing for the New York Rangers. Mm-hmm. They've moved some. Blake Wheeler, when not injured, is playing for the New York Rangers. They've moved some guys out. They already have. They didn't like the chemistry in their room, and they've made some changes. Pierre-Luc Dubois wasn't fitting in there. Patrick Laine wasn't fitting. They've made some changes there. It's not like they haven't made changes.
Yep.
I just think the defense core is not strong enough. And I think their depth players have to be better offensively. And don't play games with Cole Perfetti.
Yep.
Don't play games with him. That kid's a really good player. Get him in and get him playing. Get him in and get him playing.
Get him playing for sure. And one thing too, Pierre, I'd look around, if I'm shovel day off and just look around at that division they're in, right? I mean, there's sort of this trademark size and grit and brute force combined with high octane offense.
Yep.
And I would try to match that in the areas of your lineup where you don't see that. You need to insert that in there a little more, I think, going forward.
So what you look at is, can you be better than Minnesota next year? Yeah, you should be. Mm-hmm. Can you be better than Chicago next year?
Yes.
Yeah, you should be. Can you be better than Nashville next year? We don't know. Jury's out. Probably, because they're kind of doing it. What they've done under Barry Trotz is pretty amazing. They're kind of doing it on the fly, and they deserve a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Are you going to be better than Colorado? No. You're not going to be better than Colorado.
Better than Dallas? You could be. I don't think that's out of the round.
It's not about in that division. I'm talking about in that division.
Yeah.
So, not easy. You don't have to worry about Calgary. You don't have to worry about Edmonton. You don't have to worry about Vancouver. You don't have to worry about all those other teams. But they need to pay attention to what they're doing in their division. They got to get in the top 3 in their division.
All right, Pierre. Well, I guess we've got no more questions, but I want to mention breaking right now, various reports. We were talking about Rod Brindamore saying now that the Carolina Hurricanes have pulled their offer to Brindamore. This is not going well. For
kind of weirdo stuff going on.
Why is this coming out right now?
Who put that report? Jimmy, can you just tell me, who put that report out that they pulled the offer?
Kevin Weeks has it and DeCock has it.
Well, then they would know. Weeks played there and DeCock's, they would know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All right. We do have one more question. We'll answer that. No problem.
Yeah.
Morantz, good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon to you. In your opinion, which defenseman in the NHL, either now or near future, will be close to being a defenseman like McGuire of Colorado. Could Quinn Hughes get there, Pierre?
No, it's totally different size.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it too.
There's just the problem with Cale is just how big and how fast he is. There's just not that many. You know who's got a chance to be really good? He's 19 years old. It's Mitchikov in Anaheim.
Yeah. I remember Greg Cronin telling us about him.
He's got a chance to be. He's one guy. Like, I look at him a lot as a young kid, and I'm going, young kid, not a very good team. He's got a chance to be really good. Yeah. I don't think Korchinski can ever get there. He's another young guy playing in Chicago. I don't think he can get there. Vlasic's a different kind of player. He's a big guy, but I don't know if he's not the Cale Makar type. I'd have to think about the whole league, but I don't think there are too many guys in that category right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
There are no guys in that category right now. How about that?
No, he's something else. He's special. All right, well, that's going to do it for a Wednesday here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. I want to thank everyone that was watching and listening and for your questions. We always enjoy them, and we love answering them. And, of course, thank our production crew up in Montreal. And Pierre, 2 games tonight. But like we said, it's great to have Dallas and the Vegas Golden Knights on in prime time. That should be a heck of a Game 5. So urge everyone to check that out. And until tomorrow, he's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.